everybody could find a seat, we will go ahead and get this meeting started. Hi, it's my pleasure to call to order the meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District for August 11th, or excuse me, April 11th. And the first item is pledge to the flag. If everybody could please rise, repeat after Mr. Scheidegger. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. The Metro Cable announcement is the open session meeting is videotaped for Cablecast on Metro Cable 14. Replay on Saturday, April 13, 2013 at 1 p.m. and Monday, April 15, 2013 at 9 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. And the open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. Any speaker slips for?
No, we don't have any.
All right, that's terrific. Moving on to our consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I so move the consent agenda.
Second.
There's a motion by Director Jones and a second by Director Clark for approval of the consent agenda. Is there any questions on the consent agenda? Okay, Board Clerk, will you please call our roll?
Directors Monk.
Aye.
Scheidegger.
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Absent, Director Wood, Orzali, and Pearson. Motion passes.
All right. Next items is action items, but at this time we're going to move the presentation items up in the agenda and deal with item number 1 under presentations, the property tax and revenue forecast for 2013-2014.
Consultant Nicole Cohn, who is with HDL Companies. Her firm has been advising the district on property tax matters since 2011, and Ms. Cohn has been with HDL since 1992. She will be giving us insights into what to expect next year for our property tax revenue.
Good evening, members of the board. As Rhonda said, I'll be going over what's happening with the values, what we've seen happen to the values, and how we expect that to impact the revenues for 2013-14. Most of you have probably seen an article in the newspaper or something on TV and newscast about the sale prices are going crazy. Everything's back to normal. And that's just not happening. And we're seeing a little bit of that in Sacramento Fire, mostly in the first quarter of 2013. And an important point about property tax receipts. The cutoff date for values for fiscal year 2013-14 is January 1st, 2013. So unless a sale occurred prior to that date, the value on it at that point will be what you receive for 2013-14. And we did see a little bit of recovery at the end of the year, but just a slight. So the revenue that the district is receiving on parcels throughout the year is from 12 to 18 months prior to when it's received. The same goes for new construction. If you see a building come up on the corner, most likely it's not going to be received as revenue by the district for 12 to 18 months. We purchase a variety of databases that help us try to figure out the impact of what's going on property tax-wise. Appeals is one such database. A property owner can go to the board and say, my property is overvalued, I want you to look at it. And we call that an appeal. Currently, there are $14.5 billion in commercial and industrial appeals awaiting hearing countywide. The impact of those appeals is unknown prior to the board's decision, so it's a little hard to figure out the impact ahead of time. But because we've been purchasing this data for 10 years, we have some history to try to give us an idea. 31% of heard appeals are successful historically, and when they are successful, they result in a 27% 0.1% average value reduction. Foreclosures are another item that you hear a lot in the news. The foreclosure peak in Sacramento County was 2009. We're slowly seeing that bank-owned inventory get moved through the system, purchased by regular people, and add a little bit of value. And some of these purchasers are cash buyers that are buying for an investment to hold on to the property, possibly rent it out, and then hope to turn it for a profit if the market becomes such that they can make a profit. The main source of what adds value are home sales. We purchase a database on a monthly basis, and regionally, we see that median prices are indicating a mild recovery. In Northern California, the median sale price in 2012 was at its highest level in 3 years. That's as of December. The median sale price jumped nearly 20% from the prior year. And it's important to note that Sacramento County cities produce sales prices slightly below the Northern California regional average. It's a little at the lower end. Specifically in the district, we look at median sale prices in the three main components of the district. At the city of Rancho Cordova, whose median sale price is $160,000 as of December. That's a 3.2 increase over the prior year's assessed value. So again, slight, but some improvement. Citrus Heights' median sale price is $154,500. That's up 8.2% from the prior year. And the unincorporated county area, where the majority of the parcels in the district lie, median is $157,000. That's up 7.9% over the prior year. As we've seen this inventory and sale prices decline in lower areas, we're seeing the demand for snatching these lower priced homes. You know, the demand is high, and so we're seeing the prices increase because of that. 26.5% of the market was related to short sales. Cash buys were 33.8% of home sales. And absentee buyers bought 29.1%, meaning absentee, the person didn't plan to live in the home that they purchased. You may be familiar on some level with what this chart is. We have graphed the number of sales, that's the blue bar, over the last, back to 2001, and we have the median price is the red line. You can see that your peak, these are all sales within the district, was 2005, early 2006. And here we, on the far, far right, you can see where we are currently. That's equivalent of early 2002 sale price. So you have that piece of the peak has just been removed. We also look at median sale prices countywide. Here's every city in the county of Sacramento. We have the peak median year, which in most cases is 2005 or 2006. The peak median price, and then the current median price, and the percentage off peak that is. As you can see, with the exception of Folsom, we're talking around 50% or more decline off peak the current price represents. And how does that impact the values and what's happened countywide? There's something called Proposition 8, where some of you may be aware that Proposition 13 mandates that the taxable value can only increase by 2% per year. And that's true unless the market value falls below that line. And in that case, Proposition 8 picks up. The assessor is required to reduce prices to their current market value. So in the example, we have home sells for $500,000 in the first year. That's its taxable value in that year. The next year, the market price still way above what they paid, but they're taxed at $510,000, 2% increase. And then we have something like what we saw, a recession, where the market price becomes $450,000. Assessor reduces to $450,000. And then in each subsequent year, they can raise the price until it gets back to where it would have been with a 2% increase per year each intervening year, and then that Prop 13 price picks up. So that triangle shape is basically the visual representation of the lost value and the lost revenue. Specifically in the district, for 2012, we know that there are 93,839 parcels that have received a Proposition 8 reduction. That's 27.4% in reduction in value and 48.2% of all the parcels in the entire district. The net AV, so the current assessed value of those parcels, is 18 million, and the peak value was 25 million. Billion. Sorry, billion, not million. And the dollar change that's been reduced is negative $7 billion has been removed from the property tax rolls. I've also broken that down by each of the components. Just important to note that the percentage decline in both Rancho Cordova and Citrus Heights is 29.1%, while the decline in the unincorporated area is 27%. So what are some things that we need to take away from all of this? I know it's a lot of information. The CPI for 2013-14 will be 2%. So the 2% increase will be applied to only those parcels that are not in the Prop 8 pool. So basically 52% of the parcels will receive an automatic 2% increase in value. We still have commercial and industrial appeals that are continuing to impact some of these positive gains. You have positive 2% with some reductions on the appeal side. Future revenues from the dissolution of redevelopment agencies will be uneven, so we're receiving a slightly money from a different revenue stream, and we expect that to increase slightly over time. And just to reiterate, in order for the district to see positive increases, those sales and those new constructions have to be completed and enrolled by the end of December. Proposition 8 recapturing, meaning the assessor bringing values back from where she's taken them down to. We expect some in 2012 based on the increase in assessed value, the sale price, but we're not expecting to see them in any large amounts. And finally, the property tax roll is not a static roll. We have things that happen on a daily basis that impact values and revenue, and sometimes it means a mid-year reduction, revisit is necessary. Here is our general fund estimate, so our district estimate for 2013-14. It factors in all of the items I talked about, a CPI increase of 2%. We have all the transfers of ownership of every parcel that turned over during the 2012 year. We have successful appeals reductions and a Proposition 8 recapture value amount. And when all is said and done, we're estimating a 1.54% increase in assessed value between the 2 years. I've done a 5-year estimate just based on very conservative what we think will occur. There's a lot of unknowns, of course. For 2013-14, 1.5% to 2.5%. Based on what happens with the recapturing, we may see a little bit more than we're estimating. 2014-15 and 2015-16, 2.5% to 3%. Still some continuing Prop 8 recapturing and some continuing appeals activity. 2016-17, 3 to 3.5%. More Proposition 8 recaptures and less successful appeals. We expect them to be going through the system and less to be filed by then. And 2017-18, 3.5% or more. We expect new construction, some completions of projects maybe by that time that might add measurable value to the rolls. So it's slow, but hopefully increasing over time.
Mr. Chair, I have a quick question. Thank you. And forgive me, I can't remember in what agenda I read it, but are estimates for returned redevelopment money in this HDL report?
Because of the obligations and the way the obligations are reported, they're only reported on 6-month increments. So we can't do them too far in advance because we need to know what all the obligations are for Citrus Heights and Rancho Cordova and the counties, all the redevelopment agencies, to be able to get an accurate estimate. So they're not reflected here. No.
Okay, and so when might you have that?
We have them probably 2 to 3 months before the money's paid.
Okay, is that based on a fiscal year? Is it after July 1 or?
The payments are made in January and June. So for next January, so fiscal year 2013-14 January, we'll know in late fall.
Okay, thank you.
No?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, would you please?
First of all, we'd like to thank Ms. Cohn and the Finance Division for this look forward. It absolutely is some of the best data that we've had to date so that we can plan. The caution that I do want to put on the floor is that it is a known that cost of living relative to PERS increases, medical increases, will definitely exceed our growth potential. And with that, we have to appreciate the fact that there is no panacea here. That the harsh realities are that we are flatlined mentally and prepared to be that way going into the budget season. So, thank you.
Yes, well, good information. It's not quality. It's quality information. It's not good information. Thank you for your help, and hopefully you get out of here. Excuse me.
How conservative? She said that this was a conservative estimate, scale 1 to 10, 10 being the most conservative. How conservative are these estimates? Because we've had, in the past, we've had presentations where numbers have been thrown to this board and they've been wildly over-exaggerated. This is many years ago. But you said that this is a conservative estimate moving forward into the future. Could you give me some level of how conservative your organization has been when you've put this together?
We tend to be very conservative because there's so many unknowns. So I'd say on a
Rush Limbaugh kind of conservative? I mean, I just need to gauge because, we all have different determinations of how conservative people can
10
be.
being the most conservative?
Yeah,
Probably a 7 or an 8.
thank you.
All right. Any other questions? Great. Thank you very much. That would bring us to our action items. And the first action item on the agenda is the multiple bid award, vegetation management services. Chief Iverson, are you going to present on this?
President Kelly and Board, Assistant Chief Iverson, Fire Marshal. I manage the Community Risk Reduction Division. And I'm pleased to bring to your attention the staff report you have in front of you regarding the multiple bid award for the vegetation management services. Staff has worked hard on this. We've met with the Sacramento County Code Enforcement agencies, as well as the cities of Citrus Heights and Rancho Cordova, and we've all come to agreement that the inspection services for weed abatement is best served by having Metro Fire handle this from cradle to grave. So in summary, we did put out an RFQ request on March 11th and submitted statements for qualifications from various contractors. We posted this on the various publications as required. On March 25th, we had 2 companies submit sealed bids, and they were open in public forum on March 26th. We had 2 responsive bidders, Scott & Sons Weed Control and the Sacramento Regional Conservation Corps. The physical impact to this would be we would have to manage approximately 100 parcels, which has been the track record for many years past. In the past, we submitted these to the respective agencies for abatement. The change would be we would be doing this with our contractors and would have to be prepared to set aside approximately $100,000 that would be reimbursed from the property owners if there were to be those number of properties being abated. It is staff recommendation to the board to award the bid to both companies, Scott & Sons Weed Control and the Sacramento Regional Conservation Corps. I just wanted to add the director of the Sacramento Regional Conservation Corps is present, Mr. Dwight Washabaugh.
All right, folks?
I have a question, Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead.
So can I, just to get this right, we determine that a parcel needs weed abatement. The owner of the property is notified duly and then has an option to abate the weeds or not. Once they get to a certain point in that process where they're not complying, then we do the work without compensation and then lien the property?
If necessary. There's a multi-phase approach. Our weed abatement standard, Standard 11, is basically gives them a timeline to complete the inspection process. First notices would go out on April 29th. We would do our first round of inspections May 13th to 27th. May 28th, the final notice would be sent. Then we would do our second inspections of parcels June 10th through 16th. And then we would post the property for 7 days, let them know that they will be mandatory abated if not in compliance from June 17th to 19th. Then, of course, if they don't comply after the posting in 7 days' notice, we would have our contractors abate the property.
And we pay the fee to have that done. We pay the contractor to have that done.
Yes.
And then we bill the owner,
Correct.
which if they're not keeping their property up, chances are they're not interested in paying us back very timely. So what happens? Out of the 100 parcels in the history that we've done annually, are you saying those 100 are the ones we end up having to abate? And out of that 100, how often do we get timely compensation back for the services provided?
The process would be, if they do not pay the fee, it will be put on their tax lien in August with Teeters for reimbursement through taxes.
Which then is the next April 15th and all those kinds of things. I mean, we're really talking about investing $100,000 of our money in weed abatement with the hope and prayer that someday the property is sold and before it can transfer ownership, we get our piece back with double down interest and all those things. Because it seems to me that if a property owner, after you do all this due diligence and notify them, isn't complying, they're probably not interested at this point, especially if we see so many of these properties being purchased by people who live in New York and Florida and Alaska and places not here. It looks like we're basically taking care of the weeds of Sacramento County at a tune of $100,000 a year, and then maybe, I just wonder, what percentage of that realistically on an annual basis do we get back into our kitty, or do we basically invest it in liens into the future?
And what's the likelihood of ever getting that?
I also want to clarify that we have this responsibility to do the inspections of weed abatement. This is one of the initiatives we put in place to revamp prevention services. And a fee structure has been in place with a fee schedule that the board adopted on June 28, 2012, which allows us to do cost recovery for the abatement services and inspections. So if they do not, we estimate there's about 1,700 inspections that will be taking place that we have done for many years. With that, we estimate approximately 400 will not comply, and they will be faced with a fee, administrative fee, of $182 as per the fee schedule, weed abatement administrative fee. With that, the estimated return on that will be $72,800. Now, the front money, the $100,000, is an estimated worst-case scenario, which is way overinflated with actual costs involved for doing these parcels. We have a case study. We have our own parcels that are being abated as well. Armenia Fire Station, Station 33, which we do pay one of the contractors that was awarded the bid to do that now. So we do have that factored in. This is not a moneymaker. It's not a way to, a best-case scenario, I estimate it will break even, and I don't think we'll be out of any dollars on the hook for $100,000 at the end of the day.
Well, then can I follow up, Mr. Chair?
If you desire.
Yeah. So I'm wondering why, or is there a process where when we've notified an agent, a property owner that they're not compliant with this weed abatement issue, that we then turn it over to an organization that can both weed abate and get the money from that owner whenever it comes. So they're taking a risk, but also getting more reward versus us using public funds to weed abate their property in the hope that someday down the road they actually make good on us doing their weeding, versus turning it over to a collection or a company that does this for a profit and say, if you can get the money out of them, you can get it all. We've just cited them as being non-compliant, and we don't get in the business of actually doing their weed abatement.
Well, and I guess the other one I wanted to add to that is there any provision for any sort of penalty for noncompliance with our notice?
There is provisions in the penal code that the district attorney would be able to prosecute if necessary. But the end of the day, the fees that are incurred with abatement plus, there is a 15% administrative overhead or $180, whichever is greater, we would recover from that cost recovery for the abatement services. So if
But you don't know of any method or model in the country where a fire department cites a property owner for not complying with the weed abatement. It's then, once they fail to comply, that opportunity to do the weed abatement is turned over to an organization outside of the fire service, and the weed abatement and the cost recovery is all on that organization, and they can lien the property, they can do all that work. I'm just wondering if that's a model versus us being so involved. Once we've cited them, it's up to them to comply and deal with a contractor to make that work, and we're not left out on the hook for the hope that maybe someday they'll pay. That's on the organization that's doing the actual weed abatement.
I think largely what it may be is there's probably few contractors out there willing to do it on the hope that they may get paid also.
Exactly.
And it's an incumbent responsibility upon ourselves to do the weed abatement because of the property and life that it may spare at some point in time should a fire occur, kids, through any method on that property, whatever it may spread to. I don't like the idea that it's probably, we've got lesser chance than we do recurring costs on our ambulance services.
Yeah, exactly.
Probably. And the $100,000 doesn't sound good, but I understand where you're at and that it's something that we are in a catch-22 to do. I'm sorry, Director Monk had some questions.
The other question I've got, as far as the oversight of the entire program, what are our estimates as to what it's going to cost for oversight on this program?
there will be no overhead costs. We'll absorb that through our current staff to administrate this program. There will be no third-party billing company that will be administrating this program. It will be done by our clerical support staff within the Community Risk Reduction Division.
Well, I think some concerns with that. If we're having the problems doing our inspection program and having to bring in 18 firefighters on overtime to be able to complete that, where's the additional personnel going to come in to be able to oversight this program too?
We've got little choice. We could get another 18 and they could spend a lot of time out doing weed abatement.
Keep in mind through the board that we've been doing this for the last 6 years with engine companies, windshield assessment inspections.
Right. So this is a change in direction rather than absorbing the costs through our own personnel. Basically what you've done is you've gone to some private organizations to try and accomplish this work.
In addition, we set up a cost recovery model so that we're doing the services and actually getting cost recovery for the services we've been providing for many years.
I'm familiar with Mr. Washbaugh's organization, the Conservation Corps, and I think it's an excellent organization for this fire district to begin a partnership
Absolutely.
with.
No issues
in
there.
terms of accomplishing this work that is something that we must do. Certainly, the shaping that they do of young people, both mind and physically, is a valuable program to the community, and I think that this is going to provide a component of work to those individuals that'll be very, very valuable to the organization.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I couldn't be happier that that's in fact what's going on, and I think that's a great opportunity. I'd like to see them get more money out of these non-compliant folks. I'd love to see them get as much as they can. I'm a little leery that we're actually going to see much, because it seems to me like once they tell the fire marshal, hang it in your ear, I'm not interested in abating my weeds, it's like bleeding a turnip. You're not going to get them to comply with a $400 bill for our management. I'm just cynical, I suppose.
Our billing will lag behind the following April.
Yeah, there'll be more new weeds. Right. So, okay.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I have a couple questions. Sorry.
Please.
Yeah, it's a needed program. It has to be abated. Every summer, I can't tell you, there are multiple alarm fires due to lack of weed abatement, all right? That's the reality we're faced with. I don't like this idea that we have to come up with this money up front and make the pitch for it, but I understand the need. So a couple particular questions about this, and apologies if other folks know this, but I don't. When we put a lien against a property, and then that ups the property tax bill the next year, that's what I heard you say? I'm sorry, I don't know the
Finance,
machinations.
Director of our Chief Financial Officer would be best suited to answer that.
Right, it's not, mainly is like, if they don't pay that full property tax, do we get a percentage of the property tax that they do pay based on that lien?
You know, I don't know how they prioritize it if someone doesn't pay their entire bill, but I have.
Okay, we don't know. That's okay.
Yeah, I just don't know,
Okay.
but I do know that they're two different things.
Right, but then a lien, I thought that a lien wouldn't really come into forceful compliance until it was sold.
Transfer of title.
That's right, and I am not sure if you put both on at the same time, but they are two distinct things. So if we were to receive money via their property taxes, then when we were made whole, we could relieve the lien if indeed they allow us to do both at the same time. But I'm not
Yeah,
sure that we're
okay.
allowed to do both at the same time.
I'm just concerned about collecting, the legitimate collection for legitimate expenses here for weed abatement. So,
Well,
and
it's only once a year that you have the opportunity to put it on the bill. There's a deadline in August, so it would always be an annual thing, and then it would be quite a few months later before you'd ever receive it, if indeed it was paid with the property taxes.
well, we can always revisit this in a year or two if the model doesn't work out. I'm assuming that this was not that successful when the county code enforcement was in charge of this?
My first year was here last year, and it was pretty much went to October. We had weeds that are still abating and outstanding and causing imminent fire hazards. This process is a streamlined process, which abates the property within 45 days first notice.
Okay. Well, again, we have to take responsibility. Otherwise, we're going to have 3-alarm grass fires out the yin-yang around here, and then that will not be cost-effective for this district.
Right.
Mr. Chair?
Makes sense.
Mr. Chair, Mayor?
Yes.
A couple of important points. And I believe that Assistant Chief Iverson pointed out that we anticipate recovering about 70 cents on the dollar of that $100,000. We're looking at then a $30,000 investment for the life safety of one of the greatest risks in this county. Really, that's pennies on the dollar relative to what legitimately one home burning we would lose.
Makes sense.
With
the
that,
rub.
I also want you to appreciate that this is just one phase of a multi-pronged approach and program. The ability of having the Sacramento Conservation Corps doing weed abatement for this district, we're also utilizing that and going to leverage the possibility of grants in the future. We're looking at grants along the American River Parkway, State Parkway, County Parkway, for greater opportunity not only for the Sacramento Conservation Corps, greater opportunity for community risk reduction and a holistic approach towards literal risk reduction for the residents. When we get into the $30,000, that amount of money for the investment that CRRD is attempting to make, it is an investment well worth our time and energy.
All right, thank you for that.
Mr. Chair, I move this recommendation by staff for investment $100,000 up front to our two bidders to proceed with real weed abatement in our jurisdiction.
Second.
We have a motion by Director Jones and a second by Director Gould. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Directors Monk,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Gould,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Directors absent, Director Wood, Orzali, and Pearson. Motion passes.
All right, next item is action item 2, and we have 3 revisions to current board policies to review. Chief Wells.
Good evening, Directors. Mark Wells, Deputy Chief of Administration. Tonight, basically, we're coming to the board after the Policy Committee has worked these policies through and approved them at their level for consideration to the full board. That was done on February 28th at the Policy Committee. It's important to note that these have all been vetted prior to taking them to the policy committee by 522 and a labor management working group consolidated effort there so that we're all on the same page before we entertain the process of changing working conditions in some cases. And so tonight I'd like for your consideration, if you have any questions, I could certainly entertain those. However, for board approval to adopt the alternative work schedule policy revision. That policy was last revised approximately a year ago in May, and just a very small modification on that policy. The Family Medical Leave Act policy was actually last approved by this board in January, about a year ago. But some of the information that was added to that reflected changes in the law for the military leave. And then, of course, the proposed changes to the military leave of absence policy that hadn't been reflected any changes in it since June of 2002. And there's been a lot of legislation and law changes to that, so that policy was updated to accommodate all the legalities that are necessary in that policy. So tonight, for your consideration would be to recommend these changes be approved by the full board.
Mr. Chair, so move.
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Director Gould and a second by Director Monk. Board Clerk, can we handle all these in one motion?
Yes, you could,
Then
the
I'm
way
certain
it's agendized.
The motion was to approve all three.
Second.
Yeah, no,
We have a
I'm sure the
second?
motion was to
That's
approve all
exactly what
three.
the motion was designed to be.
Sixth.
And I want to thank also, for those that aren't sitting on the policy committee, this group spent a tremendous amount of time researching to ensure that this district is in compliance with federal and state law, and really did a nice job of bringing the committee up to speed on some of that. And it's just amazing the amount of new legislation that requires this organization to be in compliance. And kudos to Chief Wells and all the staff that work with him, because I know it was a huge undertaking, and we didn't make it much easier as we asked a bundle of questions for a while. So thank you very much for
I appreciate that. I'd also like to send my thank yous to Local 522 and their collaboration and their legal staff and expertise to work with us on this policy.
Board Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Roll call. Directors Monk.
Aye.
Scheidegger.
Aye.
Gould.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Kelly.
Aye.
Directors Wood, Orzali, and Pearson absent. Motion passes.
All right then. Moving on to President's report. I have nothing for the board at this time. Fire Chief's report. Deputy Chief Holbrook.
Thank you. This week we have Chief Hinkie attending the Metro Chiefs Conference in Phoenix, Arizona. He'll be, as a matter of fact, we spoke with him today. He's en route to Santa Barbara for the evening, where he'll overnight before returning back to Sacramento tomorrow. Next week, he is en route to Cap, Washington, D.C. He'll be there with Rusty Dupre, Larry Davis, Director Jones, Director Orzali, and Director Pearson. Meetings this week were March 29th, met with the United States Coast Guard on contract negotiations. That contract expires in October, and we prompted the Coast Guard to not wait until September this time and start those negotiations. So those got underway. The 29th as well, we did a meeting with PG&E, and that was relative to the potential for PG&E to be an investor in the Zinfandel training facility. That meeting went very well, and follow-up meetings are being scheduled at this time. On the 2nd of April, a 201-224, which are ambulance transport rights, perspective workshop was held here in Sacramento. Metro Fire hosted and was well attended by the California League of Cities, CSAC, county executives from as far away as Los Angeles, and many of the Metro chiefs in the state of California. Excellent workshop, rave reviews, and hats off to Chief Clough, who also presented at that workshop. Tomorrow we have the retirement dinner for 2012. That will be at the Croatian Center. I hope that you have tickets. If not, we might be able to scalp you some. On the 11th and 12th, today and tomorrow, we have the Every 15 Minutes program, which is being held at Jesuit High School. And then this Saturday, we have another open house. The open house this Saturday is at Station 24. It is at 10 a.m. to noon, and we also have additional open houses June 1st at Station 29, June 8th at Station 26, June 15th at Station 29, and July 20th at Station 105. I'm going to confirm that list. I don't believe that Station 29 is doing it twice, so I'll get back to you at the next meeting. The 23rd and 24th of of April, we are headed for a command staff retreat, and at which time we will start the initial stages of the strategic planning that will lead into the board retreat for strategic planning in May. The Metro Fire Academy is starting with up to 43 recruits on the 29th of April. The single role paramedic program academy graduation is on the 17th of May. We have no details on location as to yet, and we will get those to you as soon as we can. I was very pleased to see that an announcement come out that on August the 30th, we have the Swing for Public Safety, the inaugural golf tournament benefiting the Sacramento Public Safety Foundation. Proceeds from this year's tournament will help support Metro Fire Camp and delivery of Lucas devices to our community. I have no new hires to report. I do have a reinstatement of Diana Schmidt, Fire Inspector 2, and that was effective April 1st. No new reassignments, although there were 3 retirements. March 31st, Captain Jeffrey Rowland, 28 years of service. April 1st, Fire Inspector Alan Siegel, 24 years of service. And April the 3rd, Firefighter Glenn Hustis, 21 years of service. No promotions to report. And relative to recruitment, we do have testing for the single role paramedic program and firefighters will take place early next week, and accordingly so the Human Resources Office will be have adjusted hours of availability. That's the end of the Chief's report.
All right, then. At this time, I'm a bit remiss in that, well, General Counsel, do you have a report? Nothing to report.
No report.
All right. I've been a bit remiss. We should have called our closed session sooner than this. So
He doesn't mind.
Why don't we go ahead and move into our closed session?
Talking, he says. He's just like, keep going. Golden? Are we not golden?
You look very painful. He gave thumbs up, I believe.
They're ready.
We're good?
All right. Thank you. At this time, we will reconvene the meeting of the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. And at this time, General Counsel, would you please report out?
Yes, thank you, President Kelly. The board met in closed session with respect to the workers' compensation claim of Steve Eggeman and Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District. The board voted 6-0 to give the district's third-party administrator authority to effectuate a settlement of that workers' compensation claim. In the matter of Frank Miranda and the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District, a workers' compensation claim, the board voted by a vote of 6-0 to give authority to the district's third-party administrator to effectuate a settlement of that claim. The board also met on a personnel matter regarding and related to the board clerk's personnel evaluation, and no action was taken.
All right, thank you. If we pick things up in the agenda where we left off, the next item was Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District's Firefighters Local 522 report. See no representatives from that organization. Moving on to committee and delegate reports. The executive committee met 2 weeks ago today. Nothing really to report out. Communications Center JPA, Chief Cockrum.
President Kelly, Director Scott Cockrum, Deputy Chief Support Services. The Communications Center met 2 weeks ago today also. Quite a few things to report. Our Communications Center is really thriving and moving forward well. We're happy with what's going on. It appears, based on some preliminary budget estimates, that there will be no increase in the fees associated with them for this next coming fiscal year. This year we paid just over $2.9 million for their services. The Communications Center would like to report that they are fully staffed for the first time that they have ever been. They've hired 24 personnel over the last 4 months, which involved over 89 interviews. So they're being pretty selective on the number of people. That includes 7 new dispatchers, which are in the academy with graduation in the first week of May. They've done a complete reorganization and restructuring of their upper management, the number of IT people, help desk. So the whole division has been restructured, and which has resulted in a significant improvement in performance, particularly in how they work with the different fire districts. They're resolving help desk tickets where they would resolve 1 or 2 a month. They resolved 89 this last month. So significant improvement to the communication to us and others. They've also added a new server in there for upgrades such as ePCR or IPCR for different communications for the emergent technologies that are occurring within our district and throughout the agencies. So those things help in turning over how quickly PCRs are built. So it just expedites that process and the labor and manpower associated with getting them out get them to the billing agency and through the process. They are working out of doing their training over at Tech Services, which is our training facility right now for their new dispatchers. In that time, they've also put in 11 CAD stations there and the infrastructure associated with those. So at this time, they're working on a longer-term opportunity with our Tech Services, with our JPA to keep those there, and at least for a short period of time until they figure out exactly what they're going to do for their backup system. Those CAD terminals can be turned into a what's the term she uses, a DR site, disaster recovery site. So there's a short-term window that at this point they don't have a good disaster recovery site, and this will help to do that. So they're really thinking in advance and ahead and bringing some real good things. And finally, she has a committee that they put together for a CAD RFP that was kicked off on April 24th. That involves all the different agencies. So they're anticipating a complete CAD upgrade in the 14-15 budget. So that concludes my report. So if you have any questions.
And now they've co-located that equipment over at Tech Center Drive with the JPA?
Sir, they've done that for their training. However, they're working with the JPA for a longer-term lease of that space to keep their CAD equipment, their computer equipment, and the infrastructure that they built there in place for a longer period of time. That hasn't been fully vetted out yet, but if we had a disaster issue today and on through the next few months, then we would have a place for that. So that needs to be vetted out with the different agencies.
Gotcha. All right.
And
Please.
And this new CAD idea, as they're moving forward, I know that we've been approached on occasion, and I have specifically been approached by other public agencies and law enforcement about the possibility down the road of having, although the CAD details are different from, law enforcement and fire and EMS, if we could have maybe some congruence there, then when it goes to upgrades or personnel that are familiar with those CADs, they can come out of the law enforcement side and work with us and them, and maybe there's some cost savings and some efficiencies by using some of the same CAD that the law enforcement groups do. And I don't know enough details, or just enough to be dangerous, but I'm hoping that group that you suggested is being put together at least looks at that, because I'm concerned that we have one CAD from one vendor and they have a CAD from another, right, and we don't enjoy some of the benefits of having one CAD for all public safety in this county or region, so that, one IT or 10 IT guys all are looking at the same stuff and can help each other out when needs be, so on and so forth. So I hope that's happening. And it's not. That's too bad.
Chief, a couple meetings back that I watched a presentation from the LA region on the communications. Anything been done into that? They're talking about a national framework.
Right, I heard about that.
There's a lot of discussion on CAD and all of that sort of thing. The Sheriff's Department is just opening a new communications center off of Bond Road, which was their former South Area station, with really no consideration for input for our other public agencies. Citrus Heights has their own. Citrus Heights, along with Galt and Folsom and Placer County Agency, don't recall which, have at least put together a program that they can fail safe to one another. And the system that they used it had no interest with the SAC PD or with SAC Sheriff. And so while all those kinds of discussions should be taking place, and we all know that, and we all like to talk about all of those things as being part of what we should be doing,
They're not.
All right.
Could it be partially because of the vendors? You know, they have that proprietary, a lot of it is
Technology.
proprietary information, and they don't, yeah.
Well, law enforcement has a considerable concern for the security of
Right,
their
that's what I
systems
was
and
thinking.
that
That's
kind
why
of a
they
thing.
don't- yeah.
Yeah, and there could be some relationship that certainly could be the reasons that they're using for that. The truth is that they sort of get on their own direction and they say, we're going to do this and we're going to go here and we're going to build our own, and they're just different. So, but a lot of discussion does take place about that, and we as an organization, Metro Fire is an organization that really pushes this interoperability more than most. And so these discussions that we have are because we believe in that, but more so than some of our partner agencies. And that's just, we've been working with these multi-agencies for a long, long time. And
Yeah, it's a shame that it doesn't go from talk to action, because where that will really come back to bite us is one day when all that communication doesn't work and we really need it to, because we haven't had the foresight a decade in advance to say, get over your territories and your own issues and work together so that we can efficiently communicate when events are so stressing. That's the key. And I hear what you're saying, and I totally believe it, but then shame on those agencies that don't understand how critical that is, because they obviously aren't reading a lot about experiences that we've had in this country where communication has failed significantly because no one had the foresight. And I'm glad to hear that we're going to continue to push that, because that's an agenda that we're all responsible for. You guys are the experts in how to communicate during crisis, and we need to really take the lead, as we do in most things, take the lead in at least putting that out in front of people, saying this is something that we ought to consider. It's just, it is, I think, a frustration for some of us to see that, we've got 19 different radios or ways to communicate, and that all works fine when everything's going normal, but when it hits the fan, then all of a sudden we wish we would have something that everybody could interoperate with, and it doesn't exist. And
I'll assure the board that Metro Fire is always on the forefront of multi-jurisdictional conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Thank you.
My interest in the report that I gave was the fact that LA Region was getting a $150 million grant on the national framework. If the money's out there and available, we should be.
Yeah, and we have Larry Davis, Aaron Castleberry, very integrated with our comm center, and they're well ahead of all of that discussions also.
Cool.
Thanks very much.
Thanks.
Moving on to the California Fire Rescue Training JPA. The JPA meeting for April was postponed to June. It was canceled and postponed to the next scheduled meeting, which is June 12th. Finance Committee, Director Scheidegger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to report that another exciting chapter in the annals of the Finance Committee was written tonight. The highlights of which, number one, we got an update on our department finances from our Chief Financial Officer. Unfortunately, revenue continues to be down, primarily in two areas. One, property taxes, which are lagging significantly. We're about $3.3 million behind at this point. But trending and looking at projections, we hope to narrow that gap significantly by the end of the year to about $500,000. And the CRP program also continues to lag in terms of collections, but we're working on improving the collections and also getting line staff out to do inspections to increase the revenue, hopefully. Secondly, we talked about our financial reporting schedule, and the Chief Financial Officer came up with a concept that I support and the Finance Committee supported. whereby we would go to an alternating month reporting of finances. And the reason is not that we're going to denigrate our vigilance in terms of watching the conditions of our finances, but rather that we could take our staff resources and redirect them, more importantly, into contemporary issues as opposed to continuing to report where it's just kind of a routine situation. So we have a new schedule that we'll be happy to share with any of you in terms of the continuum of the monthly Finance Committee meetings, but the financial reporting specifically will be done on an alternating month basis. Third, we got an update on the internal control efforts that we've made. You may recall that in the prior year's audit report, there were 18 findings or deficiencies that were found in the department. And I'm really pleased to announce that the fiscal office has corrected 15 of those and are well underway in correcting the remaining 3. They're doing a tremendous job, and the public needs to know that because I think that's a very vital part of our function in ensuring the ongoing integrity of this department. So great work there. Finally, we asked, the Finance Committee asked that the reserve account be put on the agenda for our May board meeting. The level of our reserve account and frankly, the issue of oversight and interrelation of that reserve account and management of it with the board are both needed to be discussed and pursued. So hopefully we'll be putting that on our agenda in May, and the board can do some sculling on that and maybe improve that a little bit. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Sounds great. Thank you. All right, then. Policy Committee will be, future dates will be determined as needed. All right, moving on to board member comments and questions. Starting on my right, Director Monk.
I want to thank everybody for all the hard work that they've been doing, especially the finance people. The numbers that we get, that we rely on to make our decisions, has just been phenomenal since I've been on the board, and we really appreciate all the hard work. It gives us a much clearer picture of where we are, where we're going, and it shows that we're doing okay. Next, I participated in the Rio Linda Little League parade over the weekend. That was fun, and it's thrilling to me to see the community come out and support all of us. And we had the antique fire truck, old Betsy out from 111, out there and participated in it. And we get a lot of support from the community out there, and we appreciate it. And I just wanted to say thank you to the Park District and the Little League out there and everybody that supports us on a day-to-day basis. So that's all I've got.
All right. Director Jones.
I would like to offer my sincere congratulations to all the retirees who will be honored tomorrow at the dinner. Appreciate the multiple, probably centuries of expertise and commitment to the fire service. So congratulations to each and every one of those retirees.
Director Jones, or Director Clark.
Yeah, I'm just looking, I don't have any other comment or question other than I'm looking forward to going to the retiree dinner tomorrow night.
All right. Director Scheidegger.
Nothing to add.
All right. Director Gould.
I'd just like to thank staff this evening for the presentation item that we heard, where there is conservative projections and realistic ideas of what's happening in this community. This board has been given information in the past that was significantly overshooting those projections, and I think we learned a very tough lesson from that. I know I did, and I appreciate the attitude of let's back up and be way more conservative so that we don't end up in some of the same issues that we've been in the last 5 or 8 years. And so I really appreciate people being conservative, because it's always better to get more money than you expected than spend it and not have it. So I really appreciate that initiative and appreciate you finding the expertise that's out there of people who really know. And obviously this board, and I think my colleagues, pause when they hear those kinds of things, and then that will affect decisions moving forward. And I know that the staff are also looking at those when they make presentations to the board to make decisions, that they're being very conservative in what they need to continue to keep the operation moving forward the best they can, given that reality. I mean, you know, that's just the way it is for our community for the foreseeable future. And I really appreciate that, because that's good for us then. It gets good data that we are so dependent on when we make these big decisions. So thank you very much for the time and effort going into that. It helps us, and it helps, I think, the community at large. And I want to thank the men and women who are out there every day. I had a unique experience this week for the first time in my life, waking up in the morning and getting to work with the crews and putting out a neighborhood fire that happened in my neighborhood unexpectedly. And it was just nice to see the professionalism and the cooperation that our men and women had with Citrus Heights Police, and how timely it went, and how they took consideration for the folks that were in this home of folks with special needs. And they really did a professional job of making sure, obviously, the fire was contained, but also then turning their attention to a relatively small group of individuals that were extremely frightened by it. And I was very pleased with the professionalism of the men and women recognizing that and taking the time once they mitigated the immediate risk, and really focusing their attention on the people that were clearly stressed out. So I appreciate that, and it's just one more example of how just professional the men and women of this organization are, and it really, I think, brings home just how important it is for us as directors to support that and to model that as well in our own actions as politicians. So thank you to the men and women of this department.
All right. Well, for me, I look forward to attending the retiree dinner tomorrow evening. Certainly appreciate all of the reports that staff provided this evening. And I'm disappointed to see that the chief is not here on his birthday. But I have it on firsthand knowledge that he can't remember where he put his walker.
Oh, wow. Let's
All right.
end with that. That's good right there.
With that, and I
With that,
apologize.
please.
No, and it's not relative to the chief's birthday. I want to make sure that you're aware of a tremendously unique opportunity for the board to join the firefighters in this region. On April the 16th, there is a one-night showing for something called Burn, the movie. It benefits the Detroit firefighters. It is sponsored by the Cal Chiefs training officers and Local 522. We would love for you to show up with us. You will literally be shoulder to shoulder with the public. Is not it's not open to the public that particular evening. It is nothing but the firefighters in this region supporting Detroit. So April 16th at
Crest, isn't it?
Crest Theater.
$10 a head or something? What is it?
You know,
$20 at the door, 15 now and on. What
Okay.
time? I'll get you that information. 7:30.
Or 10 to the chief.
And we'll send it through.
I'm myself and retired Captain Jimmy Doucette are going to be the MCs, so.
Well, that's worth it right there.
All right.
So with that, I apologize for not getting to that.
Not a problem at all. Thank you. Thank you, and this meeting is adjourned.